The bells of St. Stephen's Cathedral toll a desperate warning across Vienna. A messenger bursts through the city gates, his words cutting through the morning air. "They're coming!" To the east, dust clouds darken the horizon as the mightiest army Earth has ever seen. 100,000 Ottoman troops led by Suleiman the Magnificent marches toward the city's walls. In his distant chambers in Barcelona, Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, clutches an urgent dispatch from his brother. If Vienna falls, all of Europe lies open before them. The year is 1529, and two civilizations stand on the brink. Within Vienna's walls, Catholics and Lutherans unite in desperate defense. Beyond them, Ottoman forces prepare to change the course of history. As the bells toll their final warning, the fate of Europe hangs in the balance. The question remains, can courage and desperation stand against an empire at its peak? Dawn breaks over the Topkapi Palace in Constantinople, 1520. In the Hall of the Mantle of the Prophet, a young man of 26 kneels before the assembled dignitaries of the Ottoman Empire. As the Grand Mufti places the sword of Osman at his side, Suleiman, son of Selim the Grim, rises as the 10th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. The assembled crowd calls out, "Padishahum çok yaşa," long live my Sultan, their voices echoing through the marble halls. "I swear by Allah and all that is holy," the young Sultan proclaims, his voice steady and clear, "to protect the faith, to expand our borders, and to bring justice to all peoples under our rule." These words, recorded by the court chronicler Kemal Pashazadeh, would define the reign of the man Europe would come to call the Magnificent. Born in November 1494 in Trabzon, a rugged Black Sea port where Europe meets Asia, Suleiman's early life was shaped by the careful planning of his grandfather, Bayezid II. Unlike many Ottoman princes raised in the soft confines of the palace, young Suleiman spent his formative years among the frontier warriors and merchants of this vital trading hub. Here he learned firsthand the complexities of governing a diverse empire where Turkish, Persian, Georgian, and Greek cultures intermingled. His education was unprecedented in its scope. In the morning, he studied with Islamic scholars, mastering the Quran, Hadith, and Islamic law. By afternoon, he trained with veteran soldiers, learning horsemanship and warfare. His evenings were spent with poets and artists, developing the refined taste that would later make him one of history's greatest patrons of the arts. His personal diaries, fragments of which survive in the Topkapi archives, reveal a deeply contemplative young man who wrote poetry under the pen name Muhibi, the lover. The prince combines his father's martial spirit with his grandfather's wisdom, observed the Venetian ambassador Bartolomeo Contarini in 1512. He speaks 4 languages, studies history and science, and shows unusual interest in the affairs of European states. This diplomatic assessment would prove prophetic. The empire Suleiman inherited in 1520 was already a formidable power, stretching from the Danube to the Euphrates. Yet, within months of his ascension, he began implementing ambitious reforms. His first act was to order a comprehensive review of the empire's legal system, earning him the Turkish epithet Kanuni, the lawgiver. He personally presided over the imperial council twice weekly, a practice his predecessors had abandoned, hearing petitions from subjects of all faiths and backgrounds. The young sultan's military campaigns showed both strategic brilliance and personal courage. In 1521, just months after his coronation, he led the assault on Belgrade, the fortress city that had repelled Ottoman attacks for over a century. Ibrahim Pasha, his grand vizier and closest friend, recorded how Suleiman worked alongside his sappers in the trenches, inspiring his men with his presence. When the fortress finally fell after a 2-month siege, Suleiman prohibited his troops from excessive looting and ordered the protection of civilian populations, a policy that would become his hallmark. The conquest of Rhodes in 1522 further demonstrated Suleiman's military innovation. Against the mighty fortress of the Knights Hospitaller, he deployed new types of siege weapons, including massive mortars that could hurl stones weighing up to 100 pounds. Yet when the Knights finally surrendered after a brutal 5-month siege, Suleiman showed remarkable magnanimity. According to the Chronicle of the Knights, he allowed them to depart with their weapons and holy relics, even providing ships for their evacuation. Such nobility from an infidel prince, wrote Grandmaster Philippe Villiers de l'Isle Adam, shames many a Christian ruler. By 1525, Suleiman had reformed the Janissary Corps, the elite infantry that formed the backbone of Ottoman military might. Originally created as a force of slave soldiers taken as children from Christian families in the Balkans, a practice known as devshirme, under Suleiman, the Janissaries became a highly professional force, equipped with the latest firearms and siege technology. Each Janissary company maintained its own tradition and insignia, fostering fierce unit pride and loyalty. The Sultan's greatest innovation was perhaps his integration of military might with cultural sophistication. He brought master craftsmen from conquered territories to Constantinople, creating a cosmopolitan capital that rivaled Renaissance Rome. The great architect Mimar Sinan, himself a former Janissary, began transforming the city's skyline with magnificent mosques and palaces. In the words of contemporary historian Mustafa Ali, the Sultan made Constantinople not just the seat of military power, but the jewel of all cities. As Suleiman's gaze turned toward Vienna in 1529, he commanded an empire at its zenith. His army was not merely a force of conquest, but a sophisticated instrument of state power, combining military might with administrative efficiency. The campaign would test not just Ottoman military prowess, but Suleiman's entire vision of empire, a vision that sought to unite East and West under the banner of Ottoman rule. On a cold February morning in 1500 in the Prinsenhof of Ghent, Juana of Castile gave birth to a boy who would become the most powerful European ruler since Charlemagne. The child was born squalling, wrote the court physician, as if already protesting the weight of the crowns he would one day bear. Charles von Habsburg, named after his great-grandfather Charles the Bold, entered a world of complex dynastic politics that would shape both his character and his reign. By 1519, at just 19 years old, Charles presided over an empire of unprecedented scope. A contemporary map in the Royal Library of Madrid shows his dominions marked in Habsburg red: Spain and its American colonies, the Low Countries, Austria, and parts of Italy. The Spanish ambassador to Venice wrote, "When the young emperor rises in the morning, the sun rises over his territories, and when he retires at night, it still shines upon his realm." Yet this vast inheritance brought enormous challenges. From his private correspondence, preserved in the Spanish National Archives, we see Charles's growing anxiety about managing his fragmented empire. "Each morning brings news of fresh troubles," he wrote to his Aunt Margaret in 1521. "Luther in Germany, Francis in Italy, the Turk in Hungary, and unrest in Spain. I sometimes wonder if God has given me more than any man can bear." The Lutheran challenge was particularly vexing. Martin Luther's ideas had spread rapidly through German territories, undermining Charles's authority as Holy Roman Emperor. Johann Cochlaeus, a contemporary Catholic theologian, recorded how Charles faced this crisis at the Diet of Worms in 1521. The emperor sat upon his throne, calm as marble, while Luther defended his heretical ideas. Though young in years, Charles showed the wisdom of Solomon in handling this matter. Charles's military education came largely through necessity. The French ambassador described him in 1525. Though not naturally inclined to warfare, he has learned its arts well, studying the campaigns of his grandfather Maximilian and maintaining correspondence with his best generals. His greatest early triumph came at the Battle of Pavia in 1525, where his forces captured the French king Francis I. The victory demonstrated Charles's growing strategic acumen and his ability to coordinate complex military operations across different theaters. In Vienna, Charles's brother Ferdinand oversaw the city's preparations for the Ottoman threat. A detailed inventory from 1527 discovered in the Vienna State Archives shows how thoroughly they prepared. 75 heavy cannons, 127 smaller pieces, 300 barrels of powder, grain sufficient for 3 months, and 200 trained arquebusiers. Ferdinand's letters to Charles reveal both brothers' understanding of Vienna's strategic importance. "This city is the lock and key to all Christendom," Ferdinand wrote in early 1529. The city's defenses were modernized under the direction of military engineer Hermes Schalautzer, whose detailed plans still exist in the Austrian military archives. He supervised the strengthening of Vienna's medieval walls, with new Italian-style bastions designed to better resist artillery fire. The innovations included angled walls to deflect cannonballs and wider moats to prevent mining operations. Contemporary accounts note that even pregnant women and children helped carry stones and earth to reinforce the fortifications. Nicholas von Salm, the 70-year-old commander chosen to lead Vienna's defense, brought decades of military experience to the task. "Though advanced in years," wrote his aide-de-camp, The old general's mind remained sharp as a Toledo blade. He personally inspected every section of the wall twice daily, knowing that even the smallest weakness could doom the city. Charles's diplomatic efforts proved as crucial as military preparations. The imperial archives contain his urgent appeals to German princes, both Catholic and Protestant. Though we may differ in matters of faith, in this hour all Christians must stand as one against the Ottoman threat. His letters to Pope Clement VII secured vital funding, while his negotiations with Polish King Sigismund brought promises of support. The Habsburg defense strategy reflected Charles's pragmatic approach to warfare. Rather than meeting Suleiman's massive army in open battle, they would wage a war of attrition. Use of scorched earth tactics along the Ottoman approach to Vienna deprived the invaders of supplies. A network of light cavalry units was organized to harass Ottoman supply lines, while spies infiltrated their camp to gather intelligence. Inside Vienna, Ferdinand implemented a strict rationing system and organized the civilian population into emergency response units. Guildmasters became militia captains, their workshops converted to produce weapons and ammunition. The city's Jewish community, though often persecuted, provided crucial financial support and intelligence through their Eastern trade networks. As Suleiman's army approached in September 1529, Vienna had been transformed into a fortress city. The Renaissance humanist Wolfgang Latzius, an eyewitness to the siege, wrote, "Every citizen became a soldier, every house a fortress, every church a hospital or granary." The city breathed as one organism, united in its determination to resist. September 23, 1529. A cold autumn rain falls over Vienna as the first Ottoman scouts appear on the horizon. Peter Stern von Laubach, the city chronicler, stands atop St. Stephen's Cathedral's North Tower, recording the arrival of Suleiman's army. Like locusts they came, covering the plains as far as the eye could see. First the Akinji light cavalry, then the Sipahi horsemen with their gleaming armor, followed by endless columns of infantry and siege engines. The numbers were staggering. Contemporary Ottoman pay registers, preserved in the Topkapi Palace archives, list 120,000 men in total, 75,000 regular troops, 20,000 auxiliaries, and 25,000 camp followers. The siege train included 300 heavy cannons, some requiring 60 oxen to move. Ibrahim Pasha, Suleiman's Grand Vizier, commanded the vanguard from horseback, his gold-inlaid armor glinting in the autumn sun. Inside Vienna's walls, Count Nicholas von Salm gathered his forces, 16,000 professional troops, including veteran German Landsknecht mercenaries, Spanish musketeers, and Austrian knights. The civilian militia added another 7,000 men. Municipal records show that even the city's university students formed their own combat unit, with professors serving as officers. The first clash came at dawn on September 24th. Hans Tscherte, the city's master builder, recorded in his diary, "The Turks attempted to seize the suburbs before we could burn them. Our arquebusiers met them in the narrow streets around the Carmelite monastery. The fighting was savage. Every house became a fortress, every garden wall a battlefield." Following standard siege doctrine, the defenders had previously destroyed the suburbs to deny the attackers cover, but the demolition was incomplete. Ottoman sappers quickly transformed the ruins into forward positions. A Viennese militiaman's account describes the scene. "They worked like ants in the night, digging trenches and building earthworks. By morning, their cannon would appear where houses had stood the day before." Suleiman established his command post at Simmering, southeast of the city. From here, he could oversee the deployment of his siege lines. The Ottoman battle plan, detailed in the campaign chronicle of Nasu Matrakchu, called for simultaneous attacks on multiple sectors to stretch the defenders thin. The heaviest pressure would fall on the Kärntner Tor, Corinthian Gate, and the Bergravlin, where the walls were oldest. The Ottoman artillery opened fire on September 27th. The diary of Sister Maria Magdalena from the Königskloster convent provides a civilian perspective. "The noise was beyond description. The very walls of our chapel shook. We spent the days tending the wounded and the nights praying, while above us iron balls whistled through the air like demons." Inside the city, von Salm implemented a sophisticated rotation system. Court records show how the defense was organized. The walls were divided into 4 sectors, each under a senior commander. Troops would serve 24 hours on the walls, then 24 hours in reserve. This allowed for continuous defense while preventing exhaustion. The city's bakers were ordered to provide each soldier with 2 pounds of bread daily, supplemented with beer to maintain morale. The Ottoman siege tactics were relentless and innovative. Their artillery batteries maintained a constant bombardment, while sappers dug elaborate tunnel networks. A report from the city's mining countermeasures team details their methods. They dig not single tunnels but complex networks, reinforced with timber. When we collapse one shaft, they simply redirect through another. We have begun placing large water vessels in underground chambers. Ripples on the surface warn us of their digging. October 2nd saw the first major Ottoman assault. Ibrahim Pasha committed 8,000 janissaries against the Kernthner. A Spanish arquebusier, Diego de Salinas, described the attack. They came forward in perfect order, their white caps like sea foam against their blue uniforms. Their drums beat a rhythm that chilled the soul. But our guns were well placed, and we scythed them down in rows. The defenders had learned from previous Ottoman sieges. Wooden platforms behind the walls allowed pikemen to quickly reinforce threatened sectors. Mobile artillery batteries mounted on wheeled carriages could rush to support any position. The city's craftsmen worked continuously to repair damage, using techniques recorded in Schallautzer's defensive manual. Wooden barriers backed by earthworks could quickly seal breaches. Women played a crucial role in the defense. The municipal account books list payments to water carriers, women who brought supplies to the troops on the walls. Maria Wolfhart, a baker's widow, became famous for organizing a group of women who poured boiling pitch on Ottoman soldiers attempting to scale the walls. Their courage is celebrated in a contemporary ballad. The women of Vienna, with courage true and bold, fought beside their menfolk with hearts of purest gold. The weather began to turn against the attackers. Ottoman chronicler Kemal Pashazadeh recorded the deteriorating conditions. The rain fell without cease, turning our trenches into rivers of mud. Disease spread through the camp, and the cold bit deeper each night. Still, our Ghazi's warriors pressed the attack, driven by faith in the Sultan's will. By October 9th, the situation in the Ottoman camp was becoming critical. A captured courier's dispatch, preserved in the Vienna War Archives, reveals their difficulties. The guns sink in the mud, powder spoils in the wet, and the men's spirits fall. We hear rumors of Christian armies gathering to the west. The Grand Vizier speaks of one final assault to break the city's resolve. October 11th, 1529. In the pre-dawn darkness, Ottoman sappers detonated their largest mine yet beneath the Bergravelin. The explosion shook the entire city, creating a breach 30 feet wide. Janissary commander Hassan Oz report captures the moment. The wall crumbled like sand, and our brave Ghazis rushed forward, crying, "Allah Akbar." We thought victory was finally at hand, but the defenders were prepared. Count von Salm's personal secretary, Heinrich Gassner, described what followed. The Turks found not a gap, but a trap. Behind the breach, we had constructed a curved rampart, bristling with artillery. As they poured through the gap, our guns caught them in a deadly crossfire. The morning sun rose over a scene of unimaginable carnage. This failed assault marked the first major turning point. Ottoman casualties were devastating. Pay records show 3 entire Janissary ordas, regiments, had to be disbanded due to losses. More significantly, it broke the aura of Ottoman invincibility. A Viennese militiaman wrote home, "These men can bleed like any other. Their fancy cannons cannot breach Viennese courage." The weather, already harsh, grew worse. Dr. Paul Fabricius, the city's chief physician and astronomer, recorded in his almanac, October 12th brought the coldest autumn storm in living memory. Sleet mixed with snow fell continuously for 3 days. In the Ottoman trenches, men froze in their sleep. The conditions particularly affected the Ottomans' crucial cannon powder. Monastery records note that the bombardment dropped from hundreds of shots per day to barely a dozen. Inside Vienna, conditions were also deteriorating. The city treasurer's logbook reveals the strain. Grain reserves at 1/4 capacity, lead stripped from church roofs for bullets, gunpowder running low. Yet morale remained high. A popular song from the siege, preserved by a court musician, declared, "Let the Turk rage and storm, Vienna stands firm, our hearts like our walls, refusing to yield." October 14th marked the siege's decisive moment. Suleiman ordered an all-out assault involving every available soldier. Ibrahim Pasha's battle plan, captured after the siege, shows the complexity of the operation. Simultaneous attacks on 5 points, with the main thrust at the Kernthner, supported by the remaining artillery powder. The battle began at dawn. Sister Maria Magdalena wrote, "The noise was beyond anything yet heard. The whole world seemed to shake. Through the smoke, we could see their entire army advancing like a great wave. The Ottoman chronicles describe launching over 18,000 men against Vienna's walls in waves. Count von Salm personally led the defense, despite being wounded by an arquebus ball days earlier. His aide recorded his words to the troops. "This is the hour that will echo through history. Show these gentlemen from the east how Christian soldiers fight." The 70-year-old commander moved from hotspot to hotspot in a sedan chair, directing reinforcements and rallying the defenders. The fighting lasted 18 hours. A Landsknecht sergeant's account details the desperation. "They came at us with scaling ladders, with mining charges, with great siege towers. Each time we threw them back, they regrouped and came again. The walls ran red with blood from both sides. Many brave men, Christian and Turk alike, met God that day. As evening approached, the Ottoman attacks began to falter. Their remaining powder was exhausted, and casualties had been enormous. A Janissary officer's letter home, intercepted by Habsburg intelligence, reveals the breaking point. Even the bravest cannot storm walls without artillery support. We lost 5 men for every Christian defender. The sight of our dead carpeting the ground before Vienna's walls will haunt me until Judgment Day." That night, in his tent at Simmering, Suleiman faced the hardest decision of his career. His war council's discussions, recorded by his personal secretary, show the factors at play. Winter approaching, supplies running low, rumors of Polish relief forces advancing, and mounting casualties. The Sultan's final words were philosophical. "Allah grants victory to teach wisdom through success, and wisdom through failure alike." October 15th, Vienna awakens to an unusual silence. From St. Stephen's Tower, observers reported seeing movement in the Ottoman camp. Count von Salm, despite his worsening wound, insisted on being carried to the cathedral tower. His last official report reads, "The enemy strikes their tents. Their gun positions are abandoned. God has preserved Vienna." The Ottoman retreat was orderly but brutal. Heavy equipment had to be abandoned in the mud. Vulnerable soldiers were given mercy strokes rather than left to face capture. The Hungarian Scouts report describes the withdrawal. "They march in good order, their banners still flying proudly, but their faces tell the tale of defeat that their posture tries to deny." Inside Vienna, celebration mixed with exhaustion. The city council's minutes record the immediate aftermath. Emergency grain reserves, depleted. Powder, less than 100 barrels remaining. Casualties, 4,175 soldiers and militia dead or wounded. Civilian deaths from disease and bombardment, approximately 1,800. Yet the numbers also showed Ottoman losses. Over 15,000 dead, dozens of cannons abandoned, and the entire siege train lost. Von Salm would not live to receive the emperor's thanks. His wound, seemingly minor, turned gangrenous. He died on May 4, 1530, and was buried with full military honors in Vienna's Dorotheerkirche. The Habsburg court poet wrote his epitaph. "Here lies the shield of Christendom, the hammer of the Turks, who proved that walls are built not just of stone, but of courage." The winter of 1529-30 found Vienna transformed. The city's chief architect, Hans Tscherte, surveying the damage in November 1529, wrote, "Every 5th building bears scars of Turkish cannon. The suburbs are ash and rubble, yet already our people rebuild and rebuild stronger." His detailed assessment, preserved in the city archives, listed 1,489 buildings damaged, 17 churches struck by artillery fire, and 3 sectors of the wall requiring major repairs. Ladies-in-waiting to Queen Anne of Hungary recorded the first victory celebration in their diaries. The Te Deum in St. Stephen's Cathedral was sung by voices hoarse from weeks of battle cries. Veterans wept openly, clutching their weapons like rosaries. Outside, the November wind whistled through cannon holes in the spire, a reminder of how close we came to defeat. For Suleiman, the retreat became a bitter test of leadership. Ottoman chronicler Nasuh Matrakçı described the army's withdrawal. The roads had turned to swamps, swallowing horses and cannon alike. Each morning found more soldiers frozen in their tents. Yet the Sultan shared every hardship, walking beside his men, giving his own horse to carry the wounded. When they reached Belgrade, scarce half the army remained fit for duty. The Sultan's personal response to the defeat reveals his character. His diary entry from December 1529, discovered in the Topkapi archives in 1956, reads, "Allah teaches wisdom through victory and defeat alike. We fought with honor, retreated with dignity. Perhaps it was written that Vienna should stand, that both East and West should learn the limits of their power. Habsburg records show the immediate strategic impact. A war council meeting in January 1530 noted, "The Turk can be resisted. Their artillery, though fearsome, cannot breach walls properly defended. Their supply lines stretch too far. These lessons must inform our future defenses." Charles V ordered comprehensive fortification upgrades throughout the empire, many incorporating Ottoman innovations observed during the siege. Vienna's citizens approached reconstruction with determination. Municipal accounts from 1530 show an ambitious rebuilding program. New walls, thicker than before, with angles to deflect cannon shot. Deeper moats, wider gates, every suburb to have fallback positions. The city council passed laws requiring all new buildings near the walls to include reinforced cellars that could serve as artillery positions. The siege's impact extended far beyond military matters. Johann Fabri, Bishop of Vienna, wrote in 1530, "This victory has awakened something new in our people. Catholics and Lutherans fought side by side. Nobles and merchants shared the same dangers. Old divisions seem less important now." His observation proved prophetic. Religious persecution in Vienna decreased markedly in the following decades. Cultural exchanges, despite the conflict, flourished. The detailed Ottoman maps of Vienna, captured during the retreat, influenced Habsburg military engineering. Viennese gunsmiths adopted Turkish metallurgy techniques, while Ottoman military engineers incorporated European-style bastions into their fortress designs. Trade remarkably resumed within months. By 1531, Turkish coffee was being sold openly in Vienna's markets. The siege's diplomatic repercussions reshaped European politics. Venice's ambassador reported in 1530, "Every court now understands. The Ottoman threat requires unity. Old rivalries are being set aside." Charles V's position as defender of Christendom was strengthened. Though his dream of a unified response to Ottoman expansion remained elusive, the Hungarian question remained contentious, leading to decades of frontier warfare. For both sides, the siege became a turning point in military thinking. Marshal Wilhelm von Roggendorf's military treatise of 1531 outlined the lessons learned. Wars are won not just by courage, but by preparation, supply, and adaptation to weather and terrain. The Turks failed not from lack of valor, but from overextended supply lines and autumn rains. Ottoman military reforms following the siege emphasized logistics and siege technologies suitable for extended campaigns. Local folklore transformed the siege into legend. By 1540, Viennese children played Turks and defenders in the streets. Popular songs celebrated unlikely heroes. The baker's boy who spotted an Ottoman tunnel being dug, the washerwoman who dropped a millstone on scaling attackers. Some tales grew fantastical. Stories spread of angels defending the walls, and Ottoman bullets turning to smoke against Christian prayers. The siege's memory shaped architecture and art. The Unteres Belvedere Palace, built in the early 1700s, incorporated Turkish design elements, a reminder of cultural exchange, even in victory. Churches rebuilt after the siege added Ottoman crescents under their crosses, symbolizing triumph over the invaders. The tradition of the Türkenkugeln, Turkish cannonballs embedded in city walls, began as builders deliberately preserved these battle scars as monuments. Scientific and medical knowledge advanced through necessity. Dr. Paul Fabricius's siege hospital introduced new treatments for gunshot wounds, documented in his medical treatise of 1530. The siege's psychological impact was noted by the Dominican observer Thomas Venatorius. Men who survived the walls speak of dreams filled with cannon fire, of jumping at sudden noises. Victory leaves scars invisible to the eye. Environmental changes reshaped Vienna's landscape. The destroyed suburbs were rebuilt according to military principles. Wide streets for artillery movement, clear fields of fire, stone buildings that could serve as defensive positions. The Wienerwald, Vienna Woods, was carefully managed to ensure a strategic timber supply. These changes influenced urban development throughout Central Europe. By 1600, the siege had entered historical memory as a defining moment. The Spanish historian Luis de Avila wrote, "At Vienna's walls, two worlds met and tested their strength. Neither would ever be the same." His observation proved accurate. The siege marked the end of Ottoman expansion into Central Europe and the beginning of a new balance of power. For modern Vienna, the 1529 siege remains a vital part of civic identity. The Türkengedächtniskreuz, Turkish memorial cross on St. Stephen's Cathedral, restored in 1983, bears witness to this enduring legacy. As historian Friedrich Heer noted in 1979, The siege reminds us that civilization survives through courage, innovation, and the willingness of diverse peoples to stand together against overwhelming odds. The story of Vienna's defense, passed down through generations, transcended its military significance to become a testament to human resilience. It demonstrated that walls alone do not defend cities. It is the spirit of those within them that turns mere stone into an impregnable fortress. This lesson, written in blood and courage nearly 5 centuries ago, remains relevant in every age,